Hello friends, my name is Matt Walker, producer on Marvel's Iron Man VR. We here at Camouflage are ecstatic to bring the title to a whole new audience on MetaQuest 2. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go visit our home base in Bellevue, Washington to ask the dev team about the three major challenges that we came up against when developing the title: flight, combat, and story. Our studio head had a meeting with Marvel and heard that there might be an opportunity to bring the iconic Iron Man into VR. He immediately brought it back to the dev team, who jumped at the chance to see if it would be possible to fly like Iron Man.
Even today, I think if you were to kind of pitch it on paper, some people would think, oh, I don't know, that might not feel comfortable in VR. I don't know about flying at high speeds in VR.
Yeah, on the surface, it sounds like it would not be comfortable at all.
You can literally say there hasn't been a game that did this before. Like, all the tutorials you had to figure out from the start. There wasn't anything you could look at. Like, how did this game teach flying in VR? Like, you had to figure it all out.
There were no other games that had come out like this before, so we didn't have anything that we could take inspiration from. But one of our engineers, Troy, embraced the opportunity.
I was like, I really want to see what it feels like to fly as Iron Man. I think me and everybody else just assumed it would be like a 5-minute experiment. The first thing I did was put the thrusters on the hands. I kind of like flew around a little bit, like the tuning wasn't good or anything, but I was like, it's kind of fun. After an hour of messing with it, I was like, this can't be real, right?
Even then, the flight controls still felt really, really good. And I remember just sitting in this room with him, and we just hung out for hours and just like flew around the city and like did stunts and like saw how fast we could fly. I remember after I played that and I took the headset off, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Again, I'll credit the original designers of Iron Man because they put those repulsors on his palms, and it turns out that that's a fairly ergonomic way to fly around in VR.
The initial prototypes turned out to be really fun.
The first time you get into it, you're already familiar with the universe, you already know who Iron Man is, and you have all these expectations of what it's supposed to feel like.
At that time, so much of locomotion was like teleporting or like smooth movement or like this weird move your arms. And to this day, I still think that flying mechanic is one of the best solutions ever.
Troy had some tricks up his sleeve so that the player could fly with that same grace as Iron Man.
People keep getting caught on stuff and crashing and everything, so we implemented this system where I can see if I'm flying and I'm like kind of gonna clip the edge of this building here, it'll gently nudge me to the side. The most frustrating thing is, when you're going like super fast, weaving through stuff, and this like tiny little outcropping just like kills all your momentum. You're gonna go fast in this game.
For sure.
So you're gonna need space to go fast.
Yeah.
And what's more fun to fly around in than like a big city?
My favorite in the game is just when you just take off and you just fly right across the surface of the water. The waves are splashing up in your face and you're like, I am going like 500 miles an hour. This is fantastic.
I should go see the tower.
Just making those keyholes and tight turns. Just feeling like you're on the verge of splattering.
Teaching people how to use their body to play the game has been a big challenge.
You've got your repulsors stand like Iron Man would. Like, okay,
Yeah.
put it down on my sides. Okay, now push the triggers. And then they start flying. Once they started like thinking of themselves as Iron Man, you could see it like starting to click.
It's almost like about discovery more than teaching, right? Like, here's a very basic thing. The thrust comes from here.
Yeah.
Now go have fun with it. Like, figure out what you can do with it.
Yeah.
Creating that kind of one-to-one connection between like mind, body, and game is where it really starts to come together for me, and where I really start feeling comfortable in VR. I think we just had that again with like, you know, kind of the HUD and the helmet and the thrusters on your hands. It just like fit perfectly.
There's never been a game I've played that really makes you feel like you're flying like that, and it was so good from the start.
So much tuning's gone into it that it's just a pleasure to fly around, and you really do feel like you're Tony Stark in an Iron Man suit.
I feel like technology at the point that it's at is sort of like magic. And so I got to put on the headset and suddenly it's like, oh, you put your hands back and suddenly you're flying. Like, oh my God, that's so cool.
When the team was confident that they had finally figured out flight, that flying as Iron Man was actually fun, a new challenge presented itself. What about combat? One of the unique aspects of VR is how it gives the player a chance to control the game with their whole body, to be a completely immersive experience, to become Iron Man.
What I always try to do in VR is try to make the player feel like they are the character or they are the hero. How does Iron Man punch in the movies? He punches. He doesn't push a button and have the suit do it for him.
There's like kind of general guidelines about, you know, when a gesture might work versus a button press.
Right.
But until you try it in game in the context of everything else that's going on, you never really know, right?
It turns out that you're not aware of your actual hand position when wearing a VR headset. We actually had to cheat it so that players could feel comfortable with their hand position when playing the game.
Your primary weapons really come from your palms.
We found that, like, on average, players' palms were facing inside a little bit, but they thought they were straight out. So we're going to offset the targeting reticle from the hands by that much, and then people will at least, on average, be closer to being straight ahead with their hands.
You don't have to do this. It's kind of more like this. It's still a comfortable grip.
Weapon switching. Effortlessly change from shooting your repulsors to your auxiliary weapons, like homing missiles, with a flick of the wrist.
You don't have to click a second button to activate those. You just tilt your wrist down, and I feel like that really helps drive the immersion home.
I loved it. I just thought it was a creative way to like do switching that kind of, I thought it felt natural, especially since that's where the weapons were, right? I mean, it's either palm or top of wrist.
As the team found more and more success with gestures in controlling the game, they really leaned into it for the melee attacks, for the ground pound and the rocket punch.
Flying was all gesture-based, shooting was all gesture-based, and you kind of had the two minor variations. But then we felt like we really wanted another like visceral gesture in combat, and so, you know, rocket punch and ground pound were kind of two sides of the same coin.
The ground pound. Instantly boost towards the floor and land with a devastating punch.
We had a big issue at that time with like players would get too high and they didn't know how to get down. So I was like, well, what if you just like do that hero landing thing, right? I might have tried a button press first, but pretty quickly I decided to just try like, well, what if you just, you know, literally do what he does? And it kind of felt great.
The rocket punch. Slam into enemies with instantaneous force. It feels amazing to bounce between enemies in a 3-punch combo.
Out of the box, Rocket Punch just kind of worked. It worked a little bit too well at first, where, you know, when we didn't have any like limiters on it, and people were just like punching all over the place, and it felt pretty awesome, but it really dumbed the game down into like, you know, a simple just like flail your arms, you know, experience. And so we had to figure out a way to limit it a bit on the player's part, which led to the charge up. So there's a little bit more intention that's required before you can perform it.
The 3-punch combo was actually something that you could already do.
It was an infinite punch combo.
Right. The gameplay team figured out how to put the player in Iron Man's suit. Now, how would the narrative team find a way for the player to fill Tony Stark's shoes? When we began development of Marvel's Iron Man VR, there wasn't an established playbook for how to tell story in virtual reality, but our team was up to the challenge.
Morning, sir. May I get you something?
Friday, you seen Pepper?
I believe she's putting out a fire.
We didn't have a whole lot of examples to look to in terms of AAA quality, high caliber VR titles and how they told stories. So we were kind of liberated in a sense to try whatever we wanted to do.
Playing as Tony Stark was a little bit of a surprise to me. I was expecting Iron Man, but then I was in my mansion and I got to live that fantasy.
It reinforces the core fantasy anyways, where you get this cool opportunity to be the playboy billionaire at the same time as also being the superhero.
As of today, Stark Industries no longer makes or sells weapons of any kind.
Sounds official coming from you. Have you seen my glasses?
Think you left them in the living room. I'm headed up to the Overlook. Grab your glasses and meet me there.
Dealing with Tony Stark's personality and things that he has done in the past, things that he is trying to atone for.
Like all great heroes, he's a flawed character.
Weapons maker Tony Stark is listening.
All of which begs the question, when, if ever, will Tony Stark face the losers?
We wanted to contrast the old Tony Stark, the one who's experienced building weapons of war, with the new Tony Stark who's committed to being Iron Man, to being a hero, and to making the world a better place.
You have really gone all in on the whole superhero thing, haven't you? Did you find out where those drones came from yet? So serious. And yes, I mean no. I mean I will. But I've been thinking, you've built a pretty great suit. But I think I can make it even better.
And so Gunsmith really is the old Tony Stark made manifest in computer form.
Yeah.
And Friday too, right, is kind of the
Angel
angel and the
and the
demon
demon,
on your shoulder, right? You know, Gunsmith telling you one thing and then Friday telling you the other.
Yes, but there is a cost to every victory.
My God, what are you talking?
To lose one's soul in war is to lose the war.
Who programmed you, Gandhi? Hey, I did. Oh, hey, boss.
Sir?
It's hard to step in the shoes of somebody who might be wrong, and it's complicated too. You've got a villain who you can kind of root for. Like, in some ways, she's maybe right.
So you got a name? Or should I just call you Ghost?
My name is unimportant. It is the others. Those whose lives your weapons ended. They are the names you will know before you die.
What I think we were trying to do was leveraging the storytelling strengths of VR rather than try to replicate what Hollywood films can do or even flat screen games can do.
We want to meet you, Tony Stark. It's time. Join us outside.
One important theme quickly revealed itself. How much interactivity should there be?
At every cinematic space that we created for players to navigate, we basically went down a checklist of like, what are the things that players are going to want to do when they step onto a helicarrier? What are the things that players are going to want to do when they step inside of Tony Stark's garage for the first time? They're going to goof off and look at all of the toys that Tony Stark has.
I was also shocked. I went to the fridge, I opened it up. There were grapes. I brought the grapes to my mouth, I ate the grapes. It was fantastic.
The suit station, it's really important also in VR because it's first person. You don't get to see Iron Man all the time, but you get to be reminded that you're Iron Man and sitting in front of that suit and wondering which one you're going to upgrade and change. Yeah, I get like chills when I walk up to it even in VR these days.
There are a lot of these super heroic moments in the game where you as Iron Man are, ripping a panel off of the side of a plane or putting out a fire.
That's one less burning issue to deal with.
Good job, sir.
It sears it into your brain more when you stop being a passive observer and you start being an active participant.
Yeah, those are some of the best moments.
Having this game reach an entirely new group of folks on some brilliant hardware in the Quest is really, really exciting. Power on that headset, seeing that HUD boot up for the first time, nailing those thrusters, and experiencing that thrill ride that takes us into a world where we get to experience life not only as Iron Man, but life as Tony Stark and everything that comes with it.
Care for a game?
Hey, Nick. I think I'm already in one.
You're definitely being played.
Thanks so much for joining us on this look at the development of Marvel's Iron Man VR. We can't wait for you to get the chance to step into the suit and be Iron Man.